Sorry about that, everyone. Had a little glitch on our video. Thank you all so much for joining Did You Know, the ESCO HVAC show. Man, we've had a lot of fun diving into changes in our industry and technology and ways to recruit. And today we are joining another fellow bell ringer of the industry, Martin King. Thank you so much for being here, Martin. You know, I have been stumbling onto some of your content for quite a while. When I had the opportunity to get you onto the show to dive deeper into your efforts, it was really an honor for us. So for those who are not familiar with Martin King, tell us a little bit about Martin, how you got to this place, but where you have been in the industry, because it's going to play a key factor in today's conversation.
Well, I've been complaining for many, many years about the condition of the skilled trade work market, the labor market. And I basically decided to sell my contracting company for other reasons, but I sold it back in 2000 because I could only grow so big. I had high-tech jobs I needed to do in the Bay Area, and I couldn't find enough workers to do it. So I kind of shelved that, and I said to myself, I'm going to do something about that someday. And someday has been the last couple of years.
That's right. Yeah. So you spent your time out in the field, though, as a technician, grew in the industry. So you've got the field experiences. You can live the stories and tell the stories about these adventures that are in the HVAC and refrigeration industry. How did it all start? Where did the beginning of your HVAC career come from?
Well, I went to Universal Technical Institute, UTI, and I graduated back in the early 80s. So I did like most people do. I got exposed to skilled trades right out of high school. We had a sales guy come into my shop class, and they said, hey, we have this automotive school and all this diesel mechanics and marine, and we also have this HVAC thing. And I'm like, wow, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah, so anyway, I ended up in school, graduated from UTI, and then I worked as a union technician, went through the apprenticeship program. I did get some credit for the years I spent at UTI.
Sure.
And so I worked as a technician for a while. I turned out and went actually into wholesale. I actually ended it for a short period of time. I worked in HVAC refrigeration wholesale, selling parts, counter guy. And then I decided I was going to start my own contracting company. So I bought this rusty old blue van, and I went out and I started taking whatever I could get. So we grew that into quite a large HVAC, mostly commercial company. And then by just luck, I ended up in doing both contracting and chiller manufacturing. That's a whole big story.
So that's a whole nother piece of Martin King.
Another piece, So anyway, I sold the HVAC company in 2000 and continued on as a manufacturer, making process chillers. And I decided in 2019, 20, I was going to retire. I had some other things I wanted to do, writing. I wanted to get into what I'm doing now. And so that's the Reader's Digest. That's
what we like. Well, it's the adventures along the way. And that's the picture that we're trying to paint. You know, there's such this misconception about what the HVAC industry is. And we have a lot of, young students that are getting into HVAC going, oh, am I going to be doing that, crawling in crawl spaces my whole life and climbing through attics and, brazing copper pipes. And that's all parts of the pieces of the puzzle. But when you take the opportunity to, encourage yourself to further along through the adventure, there's so many things. And we want to hear some of these stories too. We have a variety of people hopping in. Weston, thanks for joining us over Virginia, Pittsburgh area. Florida hopping in there, Small. Thank you very much. Let us know about your adventure. Throw it there into the chat so we can see the different pieces of your own puzzles along the way, because the grand story is that the trades are pretty awesome. And when you take the opportunity, it can go a long way. So let's dive right on into what you're building with the Skilled Trade Rescue and what that effort is all about.
Well, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to focus on the technician. So I'm in a unique position because a lot of consulting business people that do workshops and things like that, they focus on the contractors, and the contractors, they vet the information that's being provided, and they try and train their technicians on it. What I want to do, and it's going to take longer, is I want to create a process, an educational system that covers things specifically for the technician and tackling the challenges that they're having. So I built this, what I call the skilled trades success pyramid, which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do with that is first listen. I want to get people on my podcast, and I've got a whole series of podcasts I've done with other technicians to learn what their challenges are, what they're dealing with, and the main things that I've heard is the key things that are in our success pyramid. So
Okay.
anyway, we can talk about that later. But what I'm trying to do is what I want to do is I want to create some skilled trade millionaires. I want to create some people that can do that while they're maintaining work-life balance and catch the attention of the employers and have the workers say, hey, this has been really great for me. And I've been
Sure.
able to really excel learning what I'm learning from skilled trade rescue. And that's the way I want to try and do it. And it's going to take longer, I know, but fortunately, I'm pretty patient.
Well, and it's an ambitious effort. And really, it's part of the picture that we all are wanting to paint. You've got a fantastic story. You can talk about your journeys and the different stages, starting with one career. And there are a lot of us that have those stories and they get untold, unfortunately. They don't, people see, oh, well, someone's over here doing this particular kind of job and someone's over here doing this particular kind of job. And they don't talk about all of the ways that you got there and the different experiences that you have along the way. So that is the BLS. So this is your wages and skilled trades. Tell us a little bit about what's happening here.
Yeah, this is kind of complicated, but basically what I wanted to do is tell the story about the headwinds that contractors, anybody, any business, manufacturing that needs skilled trade workers, there's significant headwinds. And I've spent a lot of time looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, and finding
Yep.
out how they're collecting their data. And you'll notice whenever you do any Google search on how much does a plumber make, how much does an electrician make, how much does an HVAC tech make, you're going to get quoted BLS data. That's
Exactly.
just how it is. And I went behind the curtain as much as I could in the public domain. I talked to some sources. And what I found, and that's kind of what I'm trying to get at with this graphic we're putting up here, most of the data that is coming into the BLS for their wage rates that they're stating is coming in from mail-in.
Sure.
They mail out questionnaires. People send it back. Now I'm gonna ask you a question.
Yeah.
If you have a successful HVAC company and you're up to your eyeballs, you've got more work than you can handle, do you think you're probably going to spend a lot of time with a survey? Probably
No,
not.
not
But
at all.
the ones that have a lot of time on their hands, maybe, I don't know,
Or retired, or
whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of
absolutely.
different situations.
Not the
So what I'm
busybodies
trying
of the industry.
Yep. So that's one component of the challenge we're having with the BLS data. And I'm not trying to pick on those folks. I'm sure they're trying to
Sure.
do a good job.
Absolutely.
It's just that how they're collecting their data needs to be, in my opinion, upgraded.
Yeah.
So there's also partnerships between the college system in the United States and the high schools. So they're pretty commingled, if you will. And there's also been some interesting things that are happening within the college associations. They're changing their rules about what they can offer to incentivize students to come to their particular colleges, which is actually really hyped up
I've
the
seen some of that here.
competition. Yeah.
Exactly.
So we have a partnership. We have whether it be direct or indirect between the high schools, the public high schools, and the colleges, and then at the same time we have this incorrect data that's coming from the BLS, where at that critical juncture when parents and counselors at schools are starting to have discussions with their students, with their kids in their sophomore, junior, senior year, sometimes
Trying to promote. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so they're gonna there's
Just weigh our
questions.
options. Which direction are we
Yeah,
going to go?
what do I do? So
Yeah.
the first thing that gets drug out is the BLS data that says
Sure.
that a journeyman HVAC tech in the San Francisco Bay Area only makes 60 grand a year.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
I challenge you to try
Try to find one at that kind of price.
Call a contractor and find out. For example, there's a lot of
Yeah.
markets that are like that. Now, not
Sure.
all the data is wrong, but a lot of it is.
Yeah. So Howard, do you have any insights on, with experiences with wage data in the past?
Well, so here, I concur on this. Clifton, we've had some conversations about these websites are great tools. So I can learn a little bit about, it's a singular place where I can maybe learn about what someone does. Maybe I can learn more about what kind of training I need.
What does a job
It's not the
entail?
end all.
Yeah.
So part of the problem is that when you start looking at the data, I've spoken with people at the BLS many of times. And in the past, when we've had them at our conference or we reached out to them, they're tracking over 700 different occupations in 300 different industries.
Exactly.
Small group of people. So I don't know how you can really do that. Some of them said that they rely on a lot of trade magazines, different things. So if we wanted more factual data, the IRS probably could take a look at what we do and say, here's what these people really make.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that we're all preaching to the choir. We all know there's a great industry. We know what you can make.
Yep.
I think part of what we need to start conveying is Martin never saw himself when he started off doing what he's doing now. It's this big industry where you can constantly, you could be a teacher, you could be an estimator, you could work for a manufacturer. We go residential, commercial, industrial.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Do I have an answer for the BLS? No.
Right.
I don't think anyone does. It's kind of like, does anyone have an answer to the shortage of technicians in our industry? If we did, there wouldn't be a shortage. Okay?
Absolutely. Just brought up just a minute ago by Fred. Fred, thanks for joining us. He's an instructor in the HVAC industry and, sees a constant shortage of skilled trades. So a lot of this comes into painting that picture, the more realistic picture. And if you hang in with us for a little while, we're going to go through some actual glass door references of different jobs in the HVAC industry and some realistic expectations of what those salaries look like in comparison to some numbers that a lot of parents are showed, which don't represent what the industry can actually provide. So also, Martin, let's take a chance now. Let's talk about the B.E.S.T process, and maybe we'll grab a little piece of each one of these while we're here.
Yeah, you bet. So what I did is I said there's 4 parts to the B.E.S.T skilled trade success pyramid. So the foundation of it is what I call technical excellence. So that covers a lot of stuff. And I have an ebook out on that. I started with that particular one. Eventually, I'm going to have 4 ebooks about it.
Sure.
But you have how to find mentors, how to understand.
Very important in the industry.
Yes, it is. I can attest to the fact that some key whys in the road for me, I picked directions based on some mentors that I was blessed to have. So that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Habits. So we all have habits. Humans are flawed. So we tend to select habits that help our career, and then we tend to select habits that don't. So part of the thing I try to do is identify through some worksheets and things like that on how are your technical excellence habits.
Sure.
And there's a grading system and things like that. The other thing is how to create a vision strategy. So what is it that I want to get done in my professional career over a period of time? So that's
my goal.
Yeah, I try to. The whole thing is tailored towards skilled trades.
Yeah.
The next one is work ethic. I talk to a lot of technicians they change from shop to shop because they see their employers doing some things they consider to be unethical. Sometimes they get confused. They don't, there's a need out there to understand what's ethical in the business world and what's not.
Yep.
And so that's what's covered in there. And also, adaptability, talking to technicians on how to go throughout your day with integrity and honesty. And if you can project that, it's amazing in how many opportunities will open up to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the amount of trust that you build. So the next one, as we get up the ladder, is what I call every dollar. So it's the E part of B.E.S.T. And one of the challenges that people from high school coming out right now, back in the day, we used to have the home economics class where they teach how to
basic finances,
budgeting.
What are you going to do with your money?
Yeah. So one of the unique things that's going on in skilled trades right now is the ones that, have good technical excellence, they have good integrity, they tend to move up really, really quickly.
Absolutely.
And their wages go along up with that. And the challenge a lot of technicians get into is their spending, even though their wages are getting higher, their spending goes up, exceeding the extra money that they're making. Right. And money problems, especially if they're in relationships, that can cause a lot of problems. It's no secret that a lot of problems that happen in relationships have to do over
Financial,
money.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to teach them how to become millionaires in skilled trades, and it's definitely doable.
Absolutely. It's
last
learning
one-
that responsibility along the way.
Yes. The last one, oh, by the way, before we move on,
Yeah.
I do not give investment advice.
Oh, okay.
It's mainly about habits and
Right.
type of financial habits that you need to have in order to be successful. So
Well,
think
think about us as young technicians, when we were getting into the industry. If we were looking for the next place to go, we just looked at the next job, the one that paid the most next, right? So wherever we were, we just looked up to see where the next place was, and we tried to figure out what we needed to do to get to that next. But we didn't really have much of a clear path. So really, that's what we're talking about, is helping clear the path to be able to get some direction, to see that there's so many of these opportunities, that there's other things that you can do. We had one comment that came in, which was a really interesting one. That one came in from, where did I find it? That was a really good one. Oh, that was from John. So John said there is currently a bill in the state of Maryland legislature that will require public schools to give students equal emphasis on trades as they do college. Now we're cooking. Now we're starting to pair things.
That's right. Well, I've been keeping tracks of this, and there's 14 states now that have actually passed serious legislation to provide school choice. And a lot of this, one of the very few good things that came out of the pandemic is the fact that parents got to look over the shoulder of their kids and find out what was going on. Right.
Boy, Howard can preach on this one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So anyway, what's happening now is these parents are going, and they're starting to get very vocal, and some of the legislatures are starting to respond, and the dollars finally are starting to follow the kids.
Sure.
Right. So in doing that, I think that's probably the intent of what John was talking about. In doing that, it's going to be a really good thing, I think. So anyway,
Can I interject something there? I think one of the problems with the state, what's the largest cost of running a state? The K-12 system. When you're trying to cut funding easily, the easy target is vocational education. And if you start taking a look at what's happened to the trades in the schools over the last 25 years, we continue to cut it. Cut. And so the problem is everyone sits there and says, well, I'm a guidance counselor. I am paid based on how many people I get to go to college.
Right.
Maybe we need to start getting them, how many people you connected to careers that found successful employment.
Exactly.
So, I'm reading some of the comments here. We have a lot of great instructors I know. They understand, but I think part of the process is we need to start educating. Here, Clifton, we were joking a few weeks ago. When you go to school, you were never taught how to be a student.
Nope.
What to study. So your teacher tells you, go home and take notes, go home and study. What am I supposed to take notes on? How do I study it? Similarly, we don't tell people in the trades very often when they're in school the path to being successful.
No, that's exactly what we're talking about.
The basics, but we've never really told you how to get from your chair to the chair of the CEO of running that company.
I'm a young technician. I want to be Martin, but no one's telling me how to be Martin. Right?
Yeah.
So this is the path we're looking for.
The other really interesting thing is colleges don't come with any kind of a warranty, meaning that if you put a young person through a technical college, 90%, depending on which survey you look at, a high percentage, let's just put it that way, of those individuals are going to graduate and they're going to have income coming in a fairly short period of time.
Yeah.
College does not do that. If they drop out, and colleges, it depends on the stats you look at, they have a fairly high dropout rate. Now, they may come back or whatever, but the college has no warranty, no placement guarantee that they have. And even some of the trade schools have placement guarantees. If you graduate, So, I like that concept, and I think that would be really great if we had that in the college system.
Well, and so here, the mission of a university is to educate, not to get someone employed.
Right.
And where the mission of a trade school is to get someone employed.
Get somebody
Yeah,
out in the
that's a
field
good
making
point.
money.
And
Yeah.
there was a bill that was out there for a while called the Gainful Employment Act.
Right.
And part of it was, should we basically say that 72% of people in a career in school actually got placed in that career? Now, it's interesting. They only applied that to certain groups of schools. Had they applied that to all the universities,
Yeah, exactly.
they said that almost every one of them would have gone out of business.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let's dive onto this fourth one, Martin, because we're going to have fun here. We got plenty of rabbit holes we can go down.
Yeah, I know, man.
I'm so glad you're here, though. I mean, this is the language that we speak. Howard and I are like this 3 or 4 hours a day, every day.
Yeah.
So this is the world we're living in. What's the last the fourth one on here?
This one, in my opinion, is the most important.
Okay.
And the reason why the whole permit concept works is that if you don't have work-life balance, it doesn't matter how technical proficient you are. It doesn't matter. It can cause issues with ethics. It can cause issues with your money management. If your work-life balance is out of schwack, the whole pyramid is gonna have a problem. So that's the number one. I ran a survey a while back on LinkedIn, and that's the number one challenge. And it makes perfect sense to me.
If I would have only understood that when I was a young technician.
Well, yeah. So and I lived this. I've been married, 36 years now, right? And I can tell you that my work-life balance being out of whack, because I'm a recovering workaholic, has gotten me into counseling more than once. And so that's just having a mindfulness of work-life balance and learning some techniques to set boundaries, the basic stuff, is critical in my opinion. And that's what the technicians I'm talking to are saying.
Yeah, and it really is. And especially with our younger generations, how would I say this? That'd be a touchy subject for me to dive into. But if we look at generational changes over, say 4 generations, we have made a little bit of a shift into the workaholic, into the balancing act, where our younger students are really looking at life as, how can I enjoy life but still be very productive at the same time? So there is a interest in becoming aware of how to achieve that balance that was just not instructionally taught when many of us were growing up in the trades, and that is very, very important for the development, of anyone in their life. But now when we're working with our hands and we're doing things that are fun, we have to understand how to balance all of that.
But Cliff, can I segue and say something there?
Yeah.
I think part of the problem is, here, I see we have a lot of teachers here. Every one of you are required to have a program advisory committee. Don't just check the box and do it. Take a look. Who are the best employers in your area that you really emulate? Invite them. Have them come talk to your students and explain how they can be successful. You may have to really work hard in the beginning, but in the end, is it really working hard with your back or with your brain?
Yeah, exactly.
How do I have that life balance?
Whew.
What do you expect? So we need them to become mentors. But if you just check that box and invite 3 people to your PAC meeting, then all you're doing is fulfilling a compliance. But if you truly look at who the people you emulate in that area are, invite them in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make them mentors.
Martin, tell us a little bit more about your B.E.S.T workshop, because as we're talking about all these principles, I mean, they're just, if I had 2 bells right now, I'd be ringing both of them, because these are the things that we need to preach. And it's such a passion of yours. You're actually doing a workshop on that. So tell us a little bit about this upcoming workshop.
Yeah, on the 25th of March, just a few short weeks. I'm going to be holding I'm collecting a group of willing participants, hopefully technicians, people in the, physically working in the field as skilled trade pros. I'm inviting them into this collective, and I'm going to be breaking them down into smaller groups, 5 or 6. It's going to be live. And I'm going to, so it starts on the 25th, but they'll be getting notified via email. Hey, you're invited into a group that's happening on this date and this date and this date. So the idea of it is I want to get in small groups. I'm going to share the concept of the B.E.S.T process. It's totally free. And my intention is I'm going to learn as much as they're going to learn. And the reason why is it gives me one more opportunity to find out, okay, so we're talking about work-life balance now. What are some of the challenges that you're having? And if I can do it in small groups, I can start to get an idea. Ultimately, what I want to do is I want to develop a workshop, because I mentioned in the beginning, this is sort of a grassroots from the technician up concept. What I want to do is I want to put together a on-target, time-efficient online course or workshop that is very cost-effective, and the ultimate goal is to have these guys say, men and women say, wow, this information, I can see that over the last 6 months, my life has totally changed. My relationships are better. And eventually that'll filter up, hopefully, to their employers.
Absolutely.
And from there. So that's
we're not just talking about technical professional development. We're talking about mental professional development.
Yeah, no. So it's skilled trades, right?
You
so I'm
betcha.
not just talking about HVAC refrigeration. I'm talking about, I don't know how to, there's a lot of stuff I don't know how to do. Talking refrigeration, I'm your guy. But if it's something, I'm not out to teach them on how to be better electricians or plumbers or whatever. I'm teaching them, I guess it would kind of be with soft skills, right? I'm teaching them the skills and the habits they need to consider to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we encourage you to grab either a screenshot if you're on your phone, or grab your phone and grab a scan of that QR code so we can learn a little bit more about the B.E.S.T workshop. And we'll post some more information about that out here too, Martin, as we go along, so we can help promote that, because we love the idea of promoting not just the technical, but the skills and just the balancing of working in the field. Now, Jose got some great questions out there and concerns about salaries into the formula. We're going to talk about that in a minute, so make sure you all hang in, because we're going to talk about some realistic salaries out here in the industry very, very shortly, and why some of them are so skewed. So before we do that, let's talk real briefly. We've all got things that we can share for experiences out in the industry for some of our students that are hopping in that don't know exactly what jobs look like in the HVAC industry. 'Cause a lot of times we don't paint what those jobs look like. We talk about HVAC, but most of the time when we're in class, we're working on furnaces and we're working on air conditioners, and we're not looking at all of the different things that can be, journeys along the way. You might be taking a sheet metal class in school and end up doing commercial and industrial duct design and installations along the way. You could be, if you like math, you can hang out and stay in the engineering side of that whole industry. Service, a lot of guys and gals will say service is where it is at. It's a matter of preference. I've also got friends out there that stay in install their whole life and just move around in install from residential and commercial and industrial. Martin, you probably spent a lot of your time in the service side, right? And then ended up into, manufacturing out of that, because, you get into the roots of understanding what that equipment is. That residential? Is that service? Is that commercial, industrial? They can be all of the above if you allow it to be. You become a good service technician, you're just a good service technician. You have to be able to open up your mindset to be able to allow yourself to look at all of the different avenues that you can go. And I hope as educators, we're encouraging that. That is how I got to where I am. I had a wonderful mentor that got me into the industry, that I learned refrigeration right out of the bat, and I learned gas-fired appliances, and that was it. And in his brain, it didn't matter what you were working on. The job, a lot of times I go on a job and it was very basic. I might show up to work on a small chiller for an industrial laser, and the call was, yeah, we've got a refrigeration system that isn't running right. So when you open up your mind and allow yourself to venture these different avenues, all the opportunities are there and they're going to pop up. But you got to be able to learn how to manage those, right? Because what if we get out into that, commercial sector? We've moved from residential, we want to venture out into the commercial side. There's a lot more projects, a lot more opportunities that open up. Spent a lot of time in commercial HVAC and refrigeration. And then in the industrial side, this is probably a place that you hung out quite a bit in our chiller environment, right?
Yeah.
So there are different avenues. We see a lot of this equipment out there, but we don't always see the technicians working on them.
Right.
And
But
I hope,
can I say
yeah.
something there?
Oh,
I think
please
part of
do.
the problem is we're at a disadvantage. People, the only interaction they have with someone from our industry is very often the residential technician who came
That's
to their
exactly
house.
right.
They
Yeah,
don't see the
especially the
person in the back
parents.
of the grocery store on top of the, hospital. We're such a big industry. We've talked on different shows about data centers, hospitals,
Right.
pharmaceutical. We could go through this for hours.
Yeah,
And all people think of is that one person that showed up at their house.
just that
And
one
that's their
time.
view of the whole industry.
Exactly. That's the
Yeah.
portrait we have to break.
One of the things that I get looked at sideways, people don't think about this stuff. So one of the things that we did a lot of in the process chiller manufacturing business is cooling for medical devices, MRIs,
Absolutely.
CTs, linear accelerators for cancer therapy. And we got this little chiller in there just doing its thing and doing God's work, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like if you've got a patient that just had a serious brain injury and that patient has to get a scan to find out what to do,
From a
that
machine
chiller
that
has
generates
to
a lot of
work.
heat.
Exactly. Yeah. And without the chiller operating, that MRI is not working. It's
Yeah.
just not working. They got to go to another hospital. The other one that gets attention is whenever you do a Google search, there's data going out into the ether to some data center somewhere, and that data center has to be at a certain temperature, a
That's a
certain
big
humidity.
job to have.
Yeah, and if
Yeah.
it's not, your Google search ain't working.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of pointing out that some guy in a service truck with a real small screwdriver that has to go in there and change a resistor pot just right or calibrate a sensor just right can impact millions of people, actually.
Yeah.
Really, if you think about it. So
I unfortunately learned, from from experience. That was where I ended up out in the field before I got into teaching.
Yeah.
I did controls and automations in grocery stores, and people wouldn't realize that one small error in
Right.
one machine, and off you go. That particular, actually, that was the low temp rack at that store. The one right behind it had a failed head gasket on it one Saturday morning, and dumped 1,400 pounds of R22, and every cooler in a store is now gone. And who's working on that? Somebody that you may never see. And Howard preaches this all the time. In our industry, most of the hard work, most of the fun, adventurous jobs that are out there, the general public doesn't actually get to see. And so therefore the parents don't actually get to see. And therefore the students don't get to see. And, I've one example I use all the time. I had a conversation with a guy that was an outdoorsman. We were talking about different oddball jobs in industry. He said, "Let me tell you what I do." I said, "What's that?" He said, those cell phones that you use all the time and the towers that transmit all of that cellular data, there's a lot of heat going on in them buildings. And where do you see most of those towers? They're not in your backyard. They're up on an oddball hill. They're at the top of a mountain, right? He says, "So I'm an HVAC guy, and I get helicoptered in. I bring my gunny pack with about 5 days worth of food and gear. They helicopter me in, drop me off in the mountain. I go do my work. If I'm done for a day, I got 5 more days to hang out and play around in the woods before they come pick me up."
And get paid.
That's the kind of jobs we have to preach, that are the adventures out in our industry, because it's real and they're good paying. Yeah. John just put a good point out here. There's companies with, $38 an hour residential and light commercial jobs. Yeah, absolutely there are. And a lot of the data that's out there doesn't reflect what that is about.
Yeah.
Now, so we're trying to gather some of that data, aren't we? Tell us a little bit about this, Martin, what your efforts are here to put into some perspectives.
Data on, you talking about wage data?
Wage data.
Yeah. So we touched on this before, and what I've tried to do is I'm collecting data. One of the things I don't do is I try not to sit around and complain about stuff. I try to come up with some things yeah. So what I decided to do, I partnered with Microsoft Power BI, and we did some kind of crazy programming, and we were able to develop a skilled trade labor survey. It's unscientific, but it
professional
works.
Data.
It's raw data. So basically what people can do is they go to our website and it takes 5 minutes to do it. And what's different about it is it's all out in the open. So we don't keep the data for ourselves and then try to sell it or anything like that. When people fill the survey out, the data is live from the second they hit submit. And then they also get access once they sign up. They get access to the data whenever they want. So it's just it's going to keep on running. There's no cost. There's no, I'm not making any money on the data, but ultimately what I want to do is, and I shared this with you the other day, my ultimate goal is to collect enough data to where I can get the mainstream media to start paying attention to
be more aware of the realistic
you want
numbers.
your toilets fixed, we better have some more plumbers, right? And I want to get people's attention and ultimately get in front of Congress, hopefully, to be able to get some pressure on the BLS, not to scold them, but basically to say, look, let's rework how we're collecting the data. Here's just one guy. He's just an old contractor, retired guy, and he's collected all this data, and this data does not line up with this high budget government organization. And if it's done right, hopefully we can get BLS to want to do better, right? So we're all on the same team. It's not like there's
absolutely.
So
we're just trying to clarify some of that misperception that's out there.
That's all I want to do through the survey. Yep.
Howard, tell us about your last encounter with the perception of our industry versus the wages that we see offered sometimes for those.
Well, I go to a lot of educational conferences, and the first thing that someone will say when they see my name badge, oh, you do that, you work at Jiffy Lube.
Right.
They have this idea we don't make, these are the guidance counselors, might be a director of a school, a principal,
right,
etc. They really don't know what we do. And I start asking them questions. I'll try and pick something national. Well, if the Outback Steakhouse, the walk-in cooler goes down at 2 a.m, person they're calling, what do they make? And they're like, $9-10 an hour. They really don't know. And when I start explaining it to them, they go,
let me run that job in the middle of the night.
Makes more than I do, and I've got my 6-year degree. So I think there's a big misconception. And before you jump into pay, I think the problem is, I wanted to share something. The United Association did a video a few years ago, which I think was brilliant. And it's called You See More. So all of us, we're on this business conferencing platform.
Yeah.
Whether you're on Zoom, WebEx, you're on this right now, you're watching Netflix, it's going through a data center. What's the number one cost of running it? Cooling it. Okay.
Refrigeration. Yeah.
You walk in a grocery store, most people see food. You see the network of refrigeration equipment.
No idea.
You walk into a hospital, the first thing you see is doctors and nurses. How about all the equipment running behind the scenes?
Did you know that there's $5 million worth of HVAC equipment on this building?
Right. And it's the idea of how do we paint this picture of all the equipment that's out there, all the potential jobs, and what you can actually make.
Sure. There was a good comment came in from Kyle. Kyle, thanks for joining us. Says, many of these numbers that are posted, they're just related to like taxable income and not actual income. And that's really what we wanted to point out. A lot of these salaries are based on baseline salaries, not including, I bought all my toys off from overtime. Just like we're talking, if that call came in the middle of the night for a walk-in freezer, it's down. By golly, there's a boat. Yep, I'll be there. So understanding the opportunities that are there for not just overtime hours, but for, a lot of companies are really good at, paying well for their technicians for additional incentives. And there's a lot of, purchasing opportunities of, company ownership. And those are the things that don't always get discussed in our industry of how secure our industry is. As a parent, if I had a student going to school and I knew that when they got out, they had a job waiting for them no matter what part of the country they went to, sign me up.
Well, I saw a comment from Jose down the list a little bit, and he brought up a really good point. Is these people they're out there working all the time, and we talk about work-life balance.
Yeah.
They're not they're taking those calls, and that all works out when you're single and no kids. But as time goes on, it gets to be a real issue. Now, the other point I want to make specific to the slide you have up here Clifton, is that it's really interesting on how this data is presented. In that, if you really want to find out there's very few asterisks on this data. So in other words, people zero in on the number, but the caveats that you guys just discussed about overtime and what your gross wages are and all that, very little of that is projected out there, and that's part of the challenge. So
yeah, because if you look at these numbers, right? So
like, wow, why would I want to make 55 grand a year?
Exactly. Whether I'm in installation or what, whatever sector. Yeah, go ahead.
Most technicians work full time.
Right.
Okay, so they're taking part time. They're taking small town America, big city. They're lumping everyone together. Right before this meeting started, we started looking at cost of housing in different cities. Well, it's a huge difference if you're just looking at condos versus townhouses versus freestanding houses. So this doesn't paint a full picture.
No. Right. So let's look at this picture just a little bit further, right? So we decided to take a closer look at this because I knew myself in my area. Now I'm just going to pick on my own area, which is here in the Midwest. I'm going to use Indianapolis, Indiana as the reference. And we're going to use a third-party company to look at some wages. And we're going to pick a couple different things. Now remember, if we were looking on this comparison, it's going to say, there are other jobs out there that pay more. These are 2021 median pays. They're all in that, 40, 50, 60 range. But when we look at actual numbers, all right, let's take a look. We're going to use Glassdoor for this one. If anyone wants to validate any of these numbers, just hop on Glassdoor yourself and just do some looking for your own area, just to get an idea of wages that are popping through and that are available in your area. So here in Indianapolis, Indiana, if I'm taking a HVAC technician salary, now this is saying this is a service technician, so this is not a entry line. I just came out of high school and I just want to grab a job from Joe the contractor down the road and he's going to pay me, a bunch of money to go, crawl through a crawl space in an attic all day. Although there's good money in that. So this is saying this is a service technician with 0 to 1 year. So this is a person who's went through a qualified apprenticeship program, has went through an educational program to learn service, which is not the easiest thing, but it's what I prefer. I love the service side of the industry. So now we're talking about 0 to 1 years, and we're talking about here in my area a median income of around $57,000, including base pay and additional pays. Not specific on additional pays, just saying that there's additional pays there. That could be bonuses, that could be overtime, but with a range of $38,000 to $86,000 for a early service technician. And I think that's very fair because I know technicians who are struggling at service and might make $35,000 to $40,000, but I know really good technicians, young technicians coming out of school that are making a really good wage. Well, let's bump that up just a little bit and take a look at an experienced service technician in my area. All right, so this is just HVAC service technician. Well, it's not $50,000 anymore. Now we're talking about real money. Now we're talking about a good living. So a 15-year technician could be making $80,000. And I have questions all the time. Well, that says that there's guys out there making $127,000 as service technicians. And I go, yeah, I know a bunch of them personally. Personally, I know guys in residential service making 6 figures that have been out in the field for 15 years.
Right.
So this is not exaggerated numbers. Now, what's that percentage? Yeah, it is fairly small. What's the percentage of those experienced technicians that are been out there for 15 plus years making $50,000? Well, those are the ones that aren't doing any kind of continual education. They're not bettering themselves. They don't have a plan for how to balance their life. But there is money out there to be made just in the service sector.
One thing, Clifton, that I'd like to point out, if again, I get down to the technician.
Yeah.
If you get a 15-year veteran and they've got work ethics, they've got technical excellence, they've got their money house in order, their work-life balance is in order, I'm going to argue pretty strongly that they're going to be a really good candidate if they want to start their own business.
Sure.
And there's enough room out there for future business owners because once hopefully we get this problem solved, where we're getting more technicians, the market continues to grow, there's going to be room for more business owners.
Yep.
And as a business owner, I had some $400,000 years, right? And it's just a matter of perspective. Or let's say you don't want to be a business owner, you want to get into some type of a management position. Well, you get a technician that's really done well. There's a good possibility they're going to get hired up by Daikin or Carrier, one of these big companies, as some type of an executive, and start running that chain up if they want to. So it just, anyway.
No, you're right. There's lots of opportunities. Now, one of the realistic things that we want to point out too here is there's a lot of that representation of what the industry provides. And so, one of the things we hear a lot is, I can't find anybody. I can't find anybody. I can't find anybody. What are you offering? Because Howard, tell us about the sign that you've seen for an HVAC job here recently in comparison to flipping burgers.
I was going through a In-N-Out burger, and it said, now hiring $19.50 to $22.50 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I jumped on Indeed while I'm sitting in line, and it said the average installer starts at $12.36. So I see that as part of the problem. Absolutely. But I also see here, you're saying 80 grand, and I'm looking some of the comments coming in. A lot of it's going to change depending on where you're at in the country.
Exactly.
People in California talking about these are low numbers.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in Miami, you're in California, you're in New York, you're going to see people making a lot more or
a lot less, either way,
or a lot less
where you're at.
Town. It's all going to be relative. So it's getting to know those numbers.
Yeah, that's why I highly encourage everyone to, pull up Glassdoor, use it yourself, use the tools that are available to you to know what you're worth in your area, or to know what to ask for if you're looking for a specific technician. Because if you're looking for a well-experienced service technician in my area and you're trying to offer them $50,000, there's no wonder you can't find any help.
Yeah, there's one other point that I want to make sure we cover, guys, is that there is significant space in this market for women.
Oh my gosh.
And you start to see some
the fastest growing range we have right now.
I get excited when I see these women that are, on LinkedIn that are just killing it.
Oh yeah.
Commercial. And what this business has grown so much. We touched on this very little in the beginning, that when I was, working in the trades, the microprocessor was just starting to get popular, right? Well, females, they make excellent technicians. They and I've seen some go quite a ways in the building automation sector, which is all skilled trades, right?
Absolutely skilled trades.
So I think there's bigger opportunities now for women than there have ever been before.
And I think that's probably, part of what's happened is that, a lot of our ladies are realizing that, hey, I always thought that, an HVAC job was a plumber job or an HVAC job was a roofing job, because they all got clumped into this, same cluster. If you didn't go to college, here's all these other jobs. And now they're starting to look at it going, you know what? That's not a bad job, and it does pay well. And so that reality that we see all the time with misinformation is that it was incorrect, and that the reality of our industry is that there are a lot of good paying jobs. And with the shortage that we have of our technicians and instructors, they're all fairly elevated at the moment.
Well, let me just share something. I was sharing with Clifton recently, if you have 100 silhouettes of people on a screen, okay, how many of them over the age of 65 are we going to try and recruit?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take 17 people away. Or are we going to take a lot of people over the age of 50? Let's take another 22 away. How about people under the age of 16 while we're recruiting them? Not yet. By the time you're done, you're down to 40 people. Now we're going to say, I'm not interested in recruiting any women. Before you know it, there's going to be 2 people left for you to recruit. If you're trying to recruit yourself, you don't exist. We need to broaden our horizons.
Times have changed.
Oh, that's good.
Times have changed.
You like that one? I absolutely love that.
Is that a Howardism, or what, is that?
I told you, you guys are going to get along so well. If you come to the conference, I'll never see Howard. I know it now.
Let me wipe this tear away right here. Okay.
And yet,
one thing I want to share is, Clifton, you and I've been talking about. You've been sharing with me demographics of what younger people want. What do they want? They don't want to stay in a job for 30 years. They want to do something different all the time.
Yeah.
Younger people are also looking to make a difference.
Make a difference in the world around them.
About
That's
the
us.
environment.
That's
us.
huge
We
now.
just want anything.
Sure it is.
Huge.
You could do something different every day, be on a
Yep.
different job. If today wasn't good, tomorrow will be better.
Yeah.
Well,
And you can improve energy efficiency and the environment all at the same time.
All at the same time.
Yeah, that's the thing is that I was talking to Ty Brenneman about this the other day, and he's an amazing instructor. I don't know if he's on here or not, but that guy.
Oh yeah, he was on a few weeks ago. He's a good friend of ours.
Yeah, and one of the things he brought up, he's really putting a lot of effort into connecting with the students where they are.
Yeah.
So like the old time instructors, don't use your cell phone to take pictures of that.
Get it out.
Focusing in the class, right?
Yeah.
He's like, take pictures of your work.
Absolutely.
Right? Because he understands that they want to feel good about. I mean, we're not there anymore. I mean, we were like, just do your job. You stay at the same company for 30 years, and yeah, you're not gonna like it sometimes. Nowadays, they have to make the connection between what they're doing and relevancy is very, very important to
what I know and what I want to do.
Yeah. So
it absolutely is.
When people ask, what do you do for a living? Say, I make a difference.
That's exactly right.
Man,
I'm telling you.
You can't stop it.
You're going to enjoy hanging around here, Martin.
So
we're
one thing I'd like to throw out.
Yes.
We keep talking about the BLS and dollars.
Yeah.
I also noticed on their site this morning, it says the percentage of people needed. And when you start looking at how many people are retiring, our average age, different things, I think that's understated as well.
Yeah.
I've met in the last few weeks with a number of contractor groups, all looking for people nationally.
Right.
One of them shared some data. 85% of their members said they need 1 to 5 people in the next year. So 87% said they need 1 to 15 in 5 years. 63% said they need 6 to 30 within 10 years.
Wow.
Those are huge numbers.
That's a lot of people.
Well, I think ESCO would be a really good organization. I think you guys could definitely hit the forefront of this. The reality of it is, in my opinion, is that we have incorrect data that's out there. We have partnerships that have been formed over decades between the college systems and the public school systems, which are paid by our tax dollars, by the way, but I don't want to digress.
That's another issue. That's another show.
Yeah, we have all that going on right now. And I did some numbers. I just did a blog post on this. So the annual revenue of all the college systems, as best I can figure, is $765 billion a year. That's a lot of money. And it's all in my blog post. So that's they're organized and they know what they're doing. And what I would argue is that maybe we need to get manufacturers, get all these people that are going to need the skilled trade labor to get together and come up with a similar plan, a competitive plan on how we're going to compete with that. Right. So.
Well, Martin, I'd like to share something on it. Here's the problem. We've got a lot of great instructors we work and partner with. Yep. And I don't want to, and I want to let them know we love what they do. Mm-hmm. But a lot of them work in schools, you're right, where they're driven by what's called an FTE, full-time equivalent, okay? There's a reason I want to bring this up because it goes to where you're going. A school gets its money from federal, local, state, and local funds. Mm-hmm. So if you have a room and I could put 250 people in there and teach Psych 101, and I get, let's say, $7,000 per seat, or I could teach HVAC to 12 to 18 people at the same time.
Right.
Okay, big difference in the amount of funds coming in.
Because of the cost of investment.
And then HVAC costs a lot. So schools are rewarded by putting more bodies in seats than they are training people for the trades. I think that's a big problem if we're going to long-term solve a problem.
Well, maybe industry could partner at that level, to subsidize that somehow. I don't know. I'm thinking out of the box, but yeah, it's definitely a multi-channel problem. And we're not going to solve this right away, but the main thing is we're all talking about it.
Yeah, it is. And, we're talking about ways to improve the industry, ways to be able to encourage to get students into the programs, for parents to encourage students to look at these kind of jobs as another avenue, because here's the reality. When we start looking at this, we also talk about teachers' wages. One of the issues I hear all the time is, well, it's hard to find a good instructor. Yeah, it is hard to find a good instructor. Why is that? Because there's good wages being made out there, and there are a lot of misperceptions about what it would take to be a instructor in the industry. We're talking about, if we're building qualified programs, we need to have qualified instructors for those, which means we're probably going to have to pay fairly well to have the instructors
Absolutely.
to
Absolutely.
produce
Yeah.
the content and the quality of what we want, because this industry has changed so much. We just talk about what's happened in the last 5 years. Technology has changed at such a rate that we have to be able to keep up with the education across the board for all of the changes in technology. And we have a lot of young students coming in looking for that technology.
Yeah. And
I'll throw an idea out there, though.
Yeah.
You have a lot of people who are looking to hire someone who's 35, 40 years old as an instructor.
Yeah.
Instead, start to look to some of the big, large mechanical contractors who have people who have a pension, because these people don't care what you're paying them. They're doing it for the outcome, not the income.
For the same reason we're out here trying to change the industry.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I guess where I'm at is, when I went through high school, I probably would have ended up in college myself. I went back to college after I got into the union, but that's another story. And it's that was at crossroads. I had somebody expose me to skilled trades at a critical junction in my life, and that's the direction I took. And I'm not saying that college is not a way to go. I'm just saying that all I'm working to do is to put accurate information on both lanes in front of parents and the students, and let them make informed decisions. And my big argument right now is those decisions are not informed right now.
No, and I'd say we all agree on that. That is really the biggest misperception in our industry, is what these jobs look like to parents who are a big leader into where the children look at for careers.
Well, Martin, I'm a broken record on this for people who've talked to me. If you look at statistics, roughly 21% of jobs are stated to require a 4-year degree, which means roughly 80% don't. What we're not telling people is the vast majority of jobs require post-secondary, after high school training.
After high school.
That could be a trade school, community college, apprenticeship, military, university. And if you look at the majority of the jobs, 67%, so 2/3 of them require what? Post-secondary technical education.
Right.
So whether that be HVAC, welding, dental hygienist, pharmaceutical technician. So the vast majority of jobs are actually, they require us to either go to a trade school, community college, or an apprenticeship program, not a university.
Right.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said that better myself.
So much wonderful information. I love this. These are the kind of conversations we have.
How do you walk around with all that stuff in your head? How do you do that?
That's why I have a standing desk and I walk around.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Man, we could go on and on for hours. I know that, it's a lot of information. It's a lot of things to dive into. We encourage you to join us along this adventure. For those that I'm sure some of our educators out here on today are aware of the conference. If not, come join us. Every year we meet up for the HVACR Education Conference. We're in Las Vegas, March 20th through the 22nd. This is a gathering of, right now, we're already up to over 900 participants. So this is the largest gathering of HVAC and refrigeration and building science educators in our industry, along with industry partners and associations, so that we can continue these conversations, so we can all grow together. We can face these challenges together, and we can debate and we can converse, and it's all constructive for our industry. So we thank you all for joining us so much. Any questions from the audience? Lots of comments out there. Wow, I really appreciate everyone joining in and letting us know where you're from and your experiences in the industry. Any questions or comments for Martin before we wrap things up for the day? Yeah, there we go. Let me throw that one up there as well. So we've got a quick link over to that National HVACR Education Conference. Gentlemen, you have any other questions or comments?
I could talk for 3 hours.
I know. This is so much fun. Martin, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate this. Anyone wanting to follow up with this will be, it's already out on the YouTube channel. This goes live to all of our different links. So I'll clean it up and put it back out onto our channel. You can also go to the e-learning network, the HVACR e-learning network. If you're looking for continuing education, you can actually go in, continue watching this more, or you can just go there and for $2.99, you can go through an assessment and get your continuing education hours on this particular topic. So a lot of opportunities here. All right. Well, thank you all so much for a fantastic show. And we look forward to seeing you again next week on Did You Know? The ESCO HVAC Show. Thank you for joining Did You Know? The ESCO HVAC Show. Brought to you by the ESCO Institute and HVAC Excellence. Our mission is to bring the top educators of the industry here for you in a live, unique experience so that you can join us from multiple social platforms, all with the opportunity to ask questions, to be involved, and to learn about the things that are changing in our industry as they are changing. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notifications when we go live every week. Are you an educator looking for resources to be the best that you can be? Man, you're in the right place. And we invite you to come join us at the National HVACR Education Conference, where we bring all of these guests and many more, along with manufacturers and different organizations of the trade, so that we can all be in one place at one time and gather this information to make us better together. How do you learn more? Go to escogroup.org, select HVAC Excellence, and then the conference. I look forward to seeing you again next week on Did You Know? The ESCO HVAC Show.